Good morning and a very warm welcome again to KTN Sunrise Live this Monday morning. It is Monday, so you know it is the way it is. And please do go and get yourself a copy of the papers today. Martin is just brushing up on his celebrity gossip. And that's what's, inside Emiko's gay and who's marrying who. And
You're still writing something.
Some nice read there. You can check the standard.
Really?
I thought Martin was adding a story.
No. But I'm a very great fan of Emiko's gay.
Yeah.
She sings very well. I like her music.
Yeah.
So I would not mind to check whether
you want to check what she's up to and whether she's taken. And
we should respect her choice. I mean, you don't decide what people's choices are.
Yeah, well, I'm not one to ever go
I
into
will
that.
stick to the music.
You will stick to the music, yes. For me, it's usually performance. Anything else that happens outside of that, I think, is something else altogether. Welcome. Thank you for joining us, Loius Otieno. For those of you who live under a rock and do not know who this man is, if you also live under a rock and do not know who Martin Mutua is the man in the center. And we will be
from under a rock. Both of us, man, we just crawled out from under a rock.
Yeah, well, you live under a rock, seeing as when it comes to social media and everything. Yes.
You've never shown me the pluses that go beyond the minuses.
Yes, and there will be minuses, and we'll discuss those in just a moment as well. But anything you want us to discuss on the way it is this morning, please feel free at Yvonne Okwara at KTN Kenya. Those are our Twitter handles that you can reach us on this morning. You can also send us an SMS 8040, and we will be discussing everything under the sun regarding politics and current affairs for the next hour plus. Okay? So let's get started. Changes and heads rolling, like we said. I am inclined to think that the who's who in government watches this show because this is exactly what we talked about, right? Some changes happening within the Kenya Airports Authority?
You term those changes? I'm not so sure there were changes in my view.
Okay.
For me, that was just a game of musical chairs that we've just seen happening. And if you asked me, my take is that we need to disband this Kenya Airports Authority Board. It doesn't help anything. This is why I'm telling you this. For me, what has happened is like we're trying to institutionalize tribalism, nepotism, and mediocrity at the same time. It is a worst thing that has happened because we have a serious international airport here in place. It has gone into some kind of trouble. Then we go out and fish a marketing manager to come and make her in charge of a very serious international airport. Believe me, I have no issues with the lady who's taken over. But I'm trying to look at the situation. We've had people who have taken very serious, taken charge of serious other airports, like the Moi International Airport, Mombasa International Airport, Kisumu International Airport. Very serious managers who have done that. Then, even before that had happened, I think we also had a deputy MD at the airport. I think he was kicked out. I think that was the brother to former Vice President Kijana Wamalwa. That's Matthew Wamalwa. He was in line. And I don't know how, for some reason, he must have been kicked out to pave way for the coast to be clear. And even if that was the case, why wouldn't we pick people who have already been at other institutions that have stabilized? We have more international, Mombasa International Airport, which received a very huge traffic. We have, I think that's a guy called Yatich. Yatich, if I've followed him, he's a guy who managed in Eldoret International Airport, then he managed Mombasa International Airport. And very senior guys. Then we have somebody who is taking care of Kisumu International Airport. Why wouldn't we take these managers who already know how to manage an airport, a very serious international airport? Then we just go out and fish a marketing manager to go and take charge of a very serious international airport. We are messing up the situations here. We are only, for me, we are institutionalizing tribalism and nepotism. And I wonder why NCIC is closing its eyes and they are seeing no evil, hearing no evil, and so help them God. It's not, for me, we are only breeding jumping from one trouble into another. I wouldn't be shocked if this whole airport goes up into flames.
Wow, okay. A lot of people were reading, that tribal message in this one. Louis, what are your thoughts? And also, while you discuss that, what are those fundamental changes we hope to see at the Kenya Airports Authority, how they run things and how they manage the airports? Because I believe it goes beyond just changing the person in charge, which, yes, we say the buck stops with person X, but what else do we need to see happening?
First of all, why does Kenya Airports Authority exist? You begin with that. What was this institution meant to do? What is the mandate? And then now you find out the relevant competencies. Because what Martin is saying, I don't think anybody has a quarrel with the person of this lady who's been put in charge. But what we owe the citizens, even as people who speak in the media and what we put out in the papers, we should have put out a profile of all the competencies available in this industry, first of all, from these places that Martin is talking about. Because all the things that a government enjoys is lack of information. So now we're put in a situation where Kenyans imagine there's a serious shortage of the competencies to take over whoever was the managing director there, which is far from the truth. Because they have not put out the people who actually have the relevant qualifications, the people who have the relevant competencies. They exist. And they've been in the industry, and they've been brushed aside and shoved aside. Again, as what we are now clearly saying, has been an act of nepotism, has been an act of tribalism, and this has been perfected by that whole aspect of trying to cheat Kenyans, that there's a serious lack of competency in certain areas. So by the time they now make a choice, the country thinks, phew, we got a person at last, which is not the truth. There are people lining up to do this job, but where are they? So one of the things we can help do is if we put these people out there, then we understand why, when we step up and say, why do you have to fish out somebody who has a different competency? She was effective as a marketer. Fantastic, let her go on selling. I don't know what she's selling though, because that institution needs to be reworked from scratch. But that is what I would see the beginning should be. Why was this place put up in the first place? Sort out the relevant competencies and then find them. There is no shortage of Kenyans who are able to do this job. This thing we had hoped would change was a government that comes in to try and shove Kenyans into a corner, trying to tell them, we don't have enough of these people who can do certain jobs. They are there.
When we talk about these government appointments and we see this happening and, Kenyans, go up in arms in certain cases, sometimes perhaps it may not necessarily be the case, like you say, perhaps we need to be explained to if, it's a competency issue. But then, we are Kenyans and we come from the communities that we do, and we tend to read a lot into this. For example, the KEBS MD, who was sent home, Eva Odwor, and she was then replaced by Charles Gishahi. And, again, people started that this is an issue of tribalism, and there's one community that's being targeted, and there's another that's being elevated at the expense of that community. Whether this may be the case or not, the perception in itself, is that damaging to our unity as a nation?
It's not only damaging to our unity as a nation, it's damaging to the Jubilee government. Because it's creating a path that it's giving credence to that what John Githongo used to say, it's our time to eat. So maybe he needs to come up with another book, it's our time to eat everything or completely. Maybe that's what is happening right now. Because in a span of a whole week, people have been replaced. And who have they been replaced with? You will not, those who are thinking that, you will not forgive them for viewing this as an aspect of that kind of line of thought. Because you've seen, well, I can understand Uhuru Kenyatta picking a man from his corner to guard him. Maybe he feels more comfortable. That has been the precedence with all our leaders. You look at Raila Odinga, you look at Uhuru Kenyatta, you look at, I don't know about William Ruto, I don't know who his presidential guard is. You look at Kalonzo Musyoka, you look at all these other, they all pick people from their villages to be able to guard them. Maybe they feel more safe. Well, maybe the other guys took a cue from what Uhuru did and decided maybe they should do the same, which does not help in terms of national cohesion.
Allow me to play the devil's advocate. Could it be sometimes that we raise issues when perhaps there really aren't? Could it be that there was no tribal...
You pick scams. Okay. Look at the story of the Standard ran yesterday, the audit that is needed to be run on parastatals. KEBS is one of the perfect examples. This is a place where When did you ever hear quality control actually work because KEBS exists? You enter a supermarket, there is nothing. That which breaks, melts, doesn't work, that doesn't have a KEBS stamp. So these are parastatals that need to be questioned. Why do they exist? For whose benefit? So when you see people being lined up inside of parastatals, you need to understand this is not for the benefit of a Kenyan. I don't see any area of this market that anybody has ever stepped up in public and said, one of the goods that used to be counterfeit, one of the goods is because KEBS stepped in and now we have quality matches, we have quality lanterns. Never before has anybody given credit to that institution. So you need to ask yourself, when there's an institution that exists with a full complement of management, who are they working for? I don't know anybody who's ever stepped in here and said, thanks to KEBS, my children can now wear proper clothes, so thanks to KEBS, my institution has better
Perhaps that could
stuff.
be a communication failure on their part.
It isn't. Fact is, if you go to any outlet now, I don't think you've ever found a place which doesn't have the KEBS stamp.
Right.
What is that stamp for? It doesn't champion a citizen's authority. It's not the stamp that gives a citizen proof that people are working. So you need to see beyond that stamp, beyond that seal, and understand exactly what it means in this country to be in a parastatal. And this is why when this game of musical chairs begins, people are hoodwinked into believing either there are no competencies or it's not that important after all. So let's quieten this institution because we know what we're getting for it.
Okay. Here's a tweet, and I think it makes perfect sense. Fakili Wali says, well, the marketing manager Lucy Mbugwa is an acting MD. So is Charles Gishahi at the Kenya Bureau of Standards. They're all there in an acting capacity, holding brief.
For what? For what to happen?
No, they're advertising for the post, and they will go through.
We've seen this before.
Come on, guys.
Even Gishuki was acting.
All of these guys came from the same party.
He became the MD. He acted for so many years, and he was then some game of whatever was played, and he was. Even when Parliament was questioning his appointment, he was thrust under through the throats of the people there. So forget about this nonsense about acting. It is if you don't say that somebody is acting, so you have to place them there at the expense of the bigger picture.
Because they actually move from being supporting actor to lead actor. Because the acting goes on. This is what plays out of the Kenyans. It's one big theater of actors. Okay,
right. And when we even speak about Gishui, his appointment to begin with, perhaps you can just give us context of that. Many people might not remember. It was controversial to begin with when then Transport Minister Amos Kimunya appointed him, right?
And it went through the parliamentary committees, and it was a big debate. And even the committee there was split, and it was a whole circus. And because in line, they overtook the guy who had been the same person who was the deputy managing MD, and they decided to overlook that and fished out Gishuki from somewhere. He was also a general manager somewhere, but he overtook a deputy MD to be given that position. How do you explain that? So why do you have a deputy managing director who, when the managing director has fizzled out, you go fishing out his junior to become his boss? So it didn't make sense. So, and Parliament questioned that, and it was a big thing, but knowing Kimunya the way he was, he would not budge. So he decided to go ahead with that kind of appointment. So, and the board, 3/4 being from one region, definitely rubber stamped that appointment. So it is the same board that is doing the same kind of thing. So don't expect much from this KA board, because even its constitution, it's bizarre. So we need to. My take is not about how they are thinking. It's the perception that you're giving to Kenyans.
Okay.
You make people feel in a span of a week. You've done 3 appointments in major parastatals, and you have replaced them with the same people from the same region.
Right.
And but there is a talk of town everywhere, and it's creating a very bad taste in the mouths of Kenyans. It doesn't augur well for the Jubilee government.
So whether intended or not,
one of the things we started in a discussion here when this government was coming into power, we had said that one of the things we shall look to see if will again, or for the first time actually, become a tool that Kenyans can lean on, this whole act of vetting, of going through these committees. It just continues a whole theater. But when you say acting, for me it's not acting capacity. It's a theater. These people are acting out as on stage because we don't have confidence. Even if they tell us now that a parliamentary committee will sit, so which is the one that ever sat, that ever sorted out any controversy, ever sorted out any indiscretion, to the extent that they stepped up and told Kenyans, we saved this country from this fellow or this person because these were the records they brought in. We have now perfected the idea of muscle in whoever you want. And it doesn't matter what stage you have to muscle them in through. Parliament has yet to prove to Kenyans that it is the gatekeeper, where if something lands there, it goes to a committee, Kenyans can say, you will be sorted. But now it's just another stage in the play, it's another stage in the theater. So this persons who we are told are acting, they just move roles from supporting actor to lead actor. And we continue being taken for a ride as Kenyans, and we continue sitting there as if it had to be, because lack of information, lack of competencies, and then, as usual, they take advantage of our very big memory as Kenyans. We forget, and we start looking for a new controversy, and we start shouting about it tomorrow.
And so, really what we're saying is the perception that it has created, whether intended to or not, or whether, deliberate on their part or not.
If you're championing a democracy, you're leading a democracy. That is key. Perception is key. The feeling you send out to your citizens is key. The mood you carry in your citizenry is key. And that's why certain decisions are made, not for the quality of the logistical appeal, but sometimes you have to make decisions that will galvanize the support of the country. So you cannot disregard that when you're making certain appointments and say, we had to make it as an executive, and then we're just supposed to take it in and say, well, it was a tough decision and they made the call. It's nonsense.
Because when you have that kind of perception, for instance, what has happened at KEBS, you've seen how that has been replaced. Yvonne Okwara is replaced by
Charles Kishahi.
Then the campaign by either the president or his deputy to woo the country into a unity platform would fail, because how do they now go to Nyanza and start preaching national cohesion or a place like that when the actions that you're taking are contrary or opposite to what you're supposed to, people are perceiving you to be. So it becomes very difficult for you to do certain kind of things.
To clarify, if they do need to make a replacement, which they did with the Kenya Airports Authority, after the JKI fire, and in the event that, Yvonne Okwara is found complicit in that scandal, we're not saying that they cannot make these appointments.
Absolutely.
We're not saying that they cannot do these reshuffles. What are we saying exactly, Martin?
The perception that you're creating in terms of who, it should not be seen that or perceived that you're only replacing one person from one region that is being perceived to be anti the system, to replace them with people who are perceived
as
to be
pro
the system.
Okay, all right.
Also, because the gospel you preach to us is that the Jubilee government is encompassed by all the communities in this country. So prove that and show us with the kind of appointments that you're doing, because even when they did the cabinet secretary's appointments, it was a discussion here. We said there was no face of Kenya there. So why do we want to perpetuate that kind of perception to other appointments? So it's something that the Jubilee government must be very careful in terms of how they proceed.
I had hoped that this new president, this new deputy president would come in and show this country we do not have a dead conscience. We do not have a situation where we're not aware, we're not alive to what is going on. It takes a dead conscience to have a situation such as the one we had at the airport, and you send somebody home, but what does the media blitz say? He was actually at the end of his tether. He was actually at the end of his nobody actually, nobody stands up and says, look, this went sideways. You are responsible. Take a hike. We still send out information that says, actually, it wasn't really for the reason that these people are going on. When have you ever seen people own up and say, this went wrong, somebody is responsible, go away? Don't be surprised by typical Kenyan standards. Actually, this guy is cut out to be the next senator or wherever he's come out from. Isn't that the trend? Go trip up an organization, go and tell your people you're a hero tomorrow in Parliament.
And that you were targeted by, by being sent
fired. So why wasn't that done before? Before that happened. So they should not, that's a problem. They want to...
Why not let him finish his term?
Because it was going to end in October, right?
So why bother him?
If it wasn't for the fire.
Why bother him?
This is a problem. They underrate the intelligence of a lot of Kenyans by this kind of statements. And it's not the best way to go. If a situation has arisen and there's need to do some proper work in terms of overhauling a system because it is not working, just do it and don't start giving excuses that this is because of that and that. Overhaul the system and deal with it, because there was a problem and it created a crisis in this country, and it affected even the international community in terms of how the movement within the airport. So it's something that they are taking very lightly, but it's a very serious thing.
And the golden rule remains, by the way. The universal truth remains. If you're unable to punish mediocrity, corruption, complicity, ineptitude, if you're the person in authority and you're unable to sort it out, there's only one answer: you're compromised. There's nothing to have a long discussion about. There's nothing to have an iffy and this and that. It's very clear. If you're in authority and you cannot step in to clean up what is going wrong, it is because you're compromised.
So you're part of the problem?
You're not part of the problem. You are the author.
You are the author of the problem. Okay.
So
all right.
that's why for me,
very clear.
the board did was a sham. So that for me the board is a problem. Needs to be disbanded and have people who can manage that airport properly.
Okay. Let's talk about the parliamentary versus presidential system. And I think perhaps we get lost in, we're calling for a referendum, we're going to get it by a popular vote, we'll go in, and get 1 million signatures. Let's start with you, Louis. Your thoughts on a parliamentary versus presidential system. We'll come to the politics of it and whether a referendum is too soon or not in just a moment. But what are the pros and cons of each?
I don't need, my bottom line on this is very clear, I don't need another system right now. My governor doesn't even have money to roll out his plans. I don't even know who the county assembly are when they start working. Why are we permanently on fix-it mode in this country? Why are we permanently on a crash course? We're permanently on resuscitation mode. Why are we so impatient that we can't see a system through, if only to fault it properly? So right now, I don't care what system is being proposed, either by referendum, by vote, or by magic. I really don't care. All I know is right now, we need to have a situation where we asked for something. People lost lives getting this new constitution. We haven't even rolled it out. Then we are jittery again. If you can't sit on the chair, if you've got to scratch your where all this time, change your pants or relocate your sitting area. But let the place be for a while. We've got to have a situation. Then we can actually sit down and say, this is what went wrong. We can't even count what went wrong. And we're looking for another right to correct what? I really don't care what they call it. My problem is, we cannot permanently be on fix-it mode in this country. We can't do that. It's a country. It's too big for that. You can do that in your little kiosk. We don't mind. It's a give or take for you. But not at this level. This is just wrong.
Martin?
Well, parliamentary versus presidential, they have all their, they have all their qualities in terms of what they entail. But if we put it in the context of what is happening right now, I think Kenyans, when the constitution was being drafted, they decided on what they want and replaced the situation of the kind of system of governance that they want. So it's up to us to allow this system to operate in the context that it's supposed to be, because it's I think we are hardly even a year into this system. So for me, I would say that there's no way we can pretend that we want to change this system even before we've seen it go through it. We have another 5 years to go through it. Maybe if it doesn't work, when we get towards the end of this of the 5 years, then we can have that agitation to have it changed. But for now, for me, I think the Kenyans wanted a presidential system where everybody can go and cast a ballot for them.
One man, one vote.
One vote.
Let's see it through.
So if anything went wrong with that system, I mean, Kenyans will take full blame of it, because that's what they want. So you can't. There's no way you can go back.
So there's an element of collective responsibility where Kenyans will say, okay, we made a mistake with this one, and now we will seek to change it. But let's talk about the fact that there's that whole issue of tyranny of numbers, a phrase that makes many people, particularly within the Code Coalition, highly uncomfortable that, you know, the presidency will only ever be taken by persons from these communities that have the greatest number, and this referendum is what they're proposing would be a solution to that. What do you think, Louis?
If you're in opposition, that you're uncomfortable, that is your brief. Those are your terms of reference.
You're supposed to
be uncomfortable till the next time Kenyans go to the election.
Okay.
Here's the thing, though. If you're uncomfortable, you're supposed to give Kenyans an idea, A, of a sense of loss, that I should have voted Yvonne for president. Based on the thinking you're propagating right now, based on the arguments you put up right now. We've mentioned here we don't even have a shadow cabinet, we don't have a shadow anything. What we have is a huge shadow cast over this so-called opposition. So if you're in opposition, be uncomfortable. That is your role. The moment you get comfortable, you're not in opposition. That's a joke. But the fact that you are actually mandated to be uncomfortable, it doesn't mean that now you're also mandated to be underhand, to be covert. You are supposed to do things overtly. It's the only way we can celebrate your new thinking. You cannot be the people who seem to always look for a scheme. You're always scheming. You're looking for a way to trick your way into the next level. Why are you doing that? Why not put it out there overtly and tell Kenyans this is what I want? Why do you always want Kenyans to have a situation where people are fighting out of a scheme, people are protecting themselves into a scheme, and there's always a situation of look over your shoulder, the guy coming behind you isn't playing fair? What kind of a country is this we're running then?
Well, for me, I think what Raila Odinga and his team are doing is perfectly within their right. And perfectly within their purview.
And the CIC chair did say that,
It is perfect. They're perfect. In fact, they need to do more so that they can put this government in check. The fact that it makes me, I actually laughed the way the responses came out, because Raila Odinga just made one statement and everybody was on the defensive. They had been put into a corner.
Right.
It beats logic, but that's the way politics is. The only way Jubilee government can counter this is not by starting to throw mud at Raila Odinga. Let them do things differently so that Kenyans can believe and can be able to, they endear Kenyans to make Raila Odinga irrelevant in terms of what the way they are doing things. I mean, if you are the one in charge, sure, honestly show that you're in charge. Deliver what Kenyans have given you to be able to do it. But when the moment you open a loophole for Raila Odinga to be able to question your kind of leadership, then you're giving them...
To be fair though, Martin...
The other time we said that this is a very lazy opposition. Why? Because the government of the day is working very hard to campaign for them. Is working very hard to give them fodder. They just have to wake up in the morning and say, what have they done now? Take that ball and run with it.
To be fair though, we have just said that it is too soon to perhaps start to audit this system of governance that we've got, because we're still even sorting out the issues of, you know, how much money do they get, has
That's
the money been...
That's what I'm saying, Yvonne. The way to the solution to it, I mean, Raila Odinga is rightly within his view to poke holes into the governance system.
It is not wrong to audit it.
But what are you doing to counter in terms of showing that for sure this system is working? So that is the way to go. But you don't go out, start now crying wolf and foul and who are you crying foul?
Number one, it is not wrong to audit the system. That is not the problem, at least not for me. Audit the system all you want. That is your job for the next 4 years and a few months on top. Audit it all you want, that's the thing. But I'm saying you audit it, give me a plan after that, after your audit. But right now I still see a situation where they're enjoying the fact that the Jubilee government is campaigning for them. They keep bungling and giving them reason to jump up and down and say, change this. That's the problem.
You see, when they're telling you we go for a referendum for this thing, and now your work is to resist heavily on this, if Kenyans start feeling, oh, maybe why are you resisting? There's something we can do.
But they've got to have a counter-offensive.
How you can counter it? It's so easy. Deal with the way things, if governors want this, if you want devolution to work, provide the facilities, make devolution work, so that these people will not have a platform on which to campaign on. Ensure that what the governors are asking for, if it's a percentage that they are working on towards it, show that for sure this government is for sure committed to devolution and we are providing this kind of funds. What else are they asking for in the referendum? in terms of ensuring that the Senate the Senate is the one who's supposed to
Has
protect
more
devolution.
powers, yes.
Make Senate the way it's supposed to be.
Okay.
Counter it with positive moves, but don't counter it with perception. In a week, you do certain appointments. People think, oh, for sure. You give them platform to be able to do that kind of thing.
All right, let's talk about that referendum that was indeed being pushed for by the governors. And I think perhaps, you know, now Jubilee saying that it's being taken away, which is why the Jubilee senators have pulled away from that other referendum. Let's be clear. There are two referenda that are being pushed in this country. There's this one by Court, which is looking to turn this country into a parliamentary system of governance, and there's the one that you know, the governors had started to champion, to give more powers to the Senate, to give more money to the counties, about 45%, I believe, you know, of the audited budget of the previous year. But you know, when we take a look at that, then that seems to be, and you know, on the front page of the Standard today, what they're saying now is that, you know, there's a confusion now, and perhaps those attempts that you're talking about are there by some of the Jubilee senators, or no?
Long drawn out discussion, the confusion, it's just exactly what we're saying here. Do not stop Raila and his troops from shouting referendum or whatever other adjective they want to throw at you. Let them shout all they want. Personally, I don't want a referendum, but here's the thing. The way to fight is not to shout against that and shout loudest. And now you enter into the typical rhetorical back and forth. The way to look at it is look at what you promised Kenyans. Look at your mandate and roll it out. It's very simple. So people are continuing to shout and say what they're doing. Give us results. And then that will just remain what it is. It will remain shouts from behind the fence.
All right.
But if you have no results to post, that shouting begins to take root. It's all about perception. It's all about the feeling you give the country. It's all about the level of satisfaction, the level of unity. Yes, we accept Kenyans are impatient. We have a microwave ambition to get everything sorted. But the only way to counter this is not to say who can argue against Raila the hardest and the most.
It's to just get it done.
Just get the job done.
And
then come and say later, this is what our mandate was. This is what we're rolling out. I understand there's some noises from behind the fence. Do people have any idea what it's about? Sorted. End of story. Okay.
All right. Well, we're talking about that and how, you know, Jubilee intends to counter these attacks that we see on the president, which, like we said, you know, is well within Court's rights. Their work is to poke holes in, you know, the government strategy and say this is not working and this is what we think should happen. You know, we had the announcement that Jubilee said they're forming a secretariat and they want to disband, you know, those individual secretariats for the deputy president and for the president and form one. Now, this was interesting because they couldn't even agree on that, and we've had, you know, cases of a rift there between TNA and URP, and, you know, Mungatana's name is coming up, and so is Ole Kaparo's. Your thoughts on whether, you know, they should merge and what, you know, this means, and
actually, I'm choosing words very carefully right now. Let me just say.
I can see your mind working to do that.
I'm doing edit, and I'm doing I'm doing general broadcast language that is allowed, and I'm saying I do not care about those shenanigans about form this, have a little circle going out here, form a little circle there, and children can play around and see who you will give a sweet and who you will give the pieces of candy. Not interested in those things. And that they can do because that's politics. Response to we know what our politics are like, so let them respond at that political level. But for me, when all is said and done, the results will be the indicator at the end of the day. And the Jubilee government has to stop feeding into the opposition. Let the opposition be innovative. Let them give us a plan from innovation. But this coming in to seal in gaps that the Jubilee is in its generosity, just serving up to them every other third Monday, doesn't make for interesting politics for me. It doesn't. There are those who love it. They'll go into the detail of who did what and who went where. Why should I care that they're going to bring people from their closet? They're going to unearth some people and they're going to pluck some people out from where they were.
So for you, how the secretariat works is not really the point, but they should deliver?
As a Kenyan, I need a scorecard. If I'm running a scorecard, I just need to know on the things that were promised, on the things that are happening, where is the rollout? Because the thing is, if you now wrap yourself up in that very mundane argument, and start, look at the names you're bringing up now. If we start worrying, there's a sitting president, and there's an official opposition. Now you want to start worrying about more personalities coming into the fray. Why should we care? As opposed to actually finding out what is ailing devolution in terms of, because it is there. It is a working system that has been there, it has been voted and it is working. We need to understand, why is Anne Waiguru not working? That's a question to pose. Why is the CEO telling governors, go back and do your homework again, go back and rewrite your budgets? Those are the things we need to interrogate. But if we're going to sit here and wonder who's playing in whose musical circle right now, that is where we get lost as Kenyans. Completely.
Those are just internal problems that the Jubilee government need to sort out. If they are disagreeing on who is to be where and where, that is none of our business. The business that we're supposed to be engaged in is the core function of how this government is working. Whether those other issues are party matters, which need to be dealt out at the party matter level. When it comes to the national level, in terms of these issues to do with the referendum, like I said, Raila Odinga is a shrewd politician. He's clever in terms of how he sees, and he knows when to strike. And he only makes a statement in terms of, he knows at this particular point in time, people are very charged. First, you didn't pay teachers on time. Teachers are very angry. Then you parade their officials in handcuffs because they were fighting for them. They're already very charged with that. Then for the first time since independence, you've paid civil servants towards the end of the month. At the middle of the month. They're also very, yes, and they're also very charged and very angry. So you only need to inject something that will just continue to charge this motion, and everything explodes. So in terms of that kind of thing, believe you me, if you brought a referendum now, it would even pass in terms of whichever side it goes, because there will be opposition because of that anger. But that is beside the point. It is just, this is just a process in terms of that particular moment in time. If the referendum is to come, it is the way it's going to be restructured. It is up to the way Jubilee is going to counter that referendum that is going to save them, as opposed to throwing mud at people's personalities. Deal with the issues at hand as opposed to dealing with personalities.
Right, okay. And this just brings to mind the events of 2005. If you recall, when we had that first draft of the Constitution, which we overwhelmingly, shut down. Before then, the events of 2010 came to be. And if you recall, I guess part of the worry for the Jubilee government is that this could seriously destabilize their government. If you remember, at the time, banana was a symbol for yes, and orange was a symbol for no, and these are Raila's words, and I know I'm not wrong when I say this. He said, na wakicheza na hii chungwa itakuwa chama. And that's exactly what happened. ODM, and then of course we know the results after that of the elections and everything, and so could he be trying to bring us back to a situation like in 2005? You've mentioned that the country is in a state of excitement.
Charged emotions. So, well, that is his brief, as Louis said. His brief is to ensure that he pokes holes on this governance system as much as possible. So it is up to the Jubilee government to seal those loopholes, not to direct their anger at Raila Odinga, because they will be missing the point. Could
it also be a communication thing, Louis, and I know you're big on this one, when it comes out of government offices and government circles, that perhaps the way to counter this is to start by, and I think they've done a bit of that already, but to just start to say, this is premature because look, we have been able to do so far 1, 2, 3, 4. Could it be in the messaging from the Jubilee government that perhaps they need to change that a little bit to show Kenyans what's already happening?
In a highly charged situation such as this, the brag sheet, which that's what we call it, the brag sheet you'll have is supposed to be bigger and louder than those mundane statistics you'll give us that you've managed to do ABCD, you've managed to rope in several parastatals, you've managed to sort out the civil servants' terms of reference. That doesn't work when a country is in this kind of situation.
So what works?
The brag sheet they need should be loud, and it should be on the things that Kenyans are waking up to every day. Like Mike is saying, you have to spend your effort throwing mud on a guy who, I don't even know what the complexion of his skin is. He's been thrown, I mean, when did they not throw mud at this guy? People will forget his original skin color. This is not new to him. You want to fling stuff at him. That's what he thrives on. Every waking moment of Raila Odinga's life, he will be trying to be president. And you, every waking moment, you need to understand, if you do not have a plan that shows Kenyans they do not need him, you will waste a lot of time trying to make him small as a person, trying to make him irrelevant as a person. That is a wasted effort. He has proven time beyond number. When you go for him as a person, that's what he thrives on. This time round, you need a scorecard that shows results as the government of the day. That's the only way you beat this guy. But if you want to beat him on the platform, you're joking. That's what he thrives on.
Okay. All right. Let's move to other issues now. On the front page today, and it's on pages 4 and 5, and I'm sure we'll have a shot of that, about some of these strange laws that are coming to the counties. Actually, now that we're talking about this new system of governance, and there are some that are not so bad. There are some but this is the price, I guess, of saying that we want to rule ourselves.
You're not saying that with a lot of conviction.
I'm trying to be polite. I'm trying to use politically correct language.
Whose advocate are you
there's
now?
one that we want to, make sure that women riding borders in Kisumu County, ride decently, and they want to have rules maybe as to what women should wear and how they should sit on the border. And I know this is a huge one for, I will say, so usual for women in Kisumu and in Western. Do you sit with your legs on one side? I mean, but these are the issues now we're discussing, by the way. Yeah?
Yvonne, what are you going to do?
No, yes. This is how we want to govern ourselves.
How to sit on a bike.
How to sit on a bike. Not only that, and this happened just after the election, and I remember we condemned it here with you, Martin, and the Kakamega County Assembly, they want to have, or they want to pass a motion that allows them to debate matters in the county assembly in mother tongue.
Martin, tell me about what you guys agreed on how to sit on a bike, because I don't know.
No, on a bike is a new one that I've just had.
I don't know how to sit on a bike.
For me, Yvonne, then it means our counties are missing the point.
But
they are not. This is not what Kenya. How will that add some bread or food on the table
allow me to hold brief, though. It's also an issue of morality, which perhaps for the residents of Kisumu has been a big issue between the ladies who are, passengers on the border and the drivers.
So how
it's an issue that concerns
something
them.
that the county should so much take. Those are bylaws which can be done with administratively. It's something that can be dealt with.
Can you legislate such matters, though? I mean, can you tell women, or men for that matter, how to sit?
You can't do that. I mean, it's like legislating for attitude. I mean, how do you legislate for attitude?
It's the counties that we wanted.
No, counties, then it means they're being led by people who are not focused. That is where we're going wrong. Like I told you, when these 5 years end, we will jail a few of these governors and a few. I told you, and you laughed, and you're laughing again. We're going to jail some of these governors because they don't know. Maybe they're diverting attention as they try to poke their hands in the till. What they need to do is get focused. Even the county assemblies themselves, they ought to offer direction in terms of economic development.
Well, it's not only, but Martin, let's be fair.
This is a very peripheral issue.
Okay, no, let's be fair, Martin. It's not only about economical issues. There's also issues of morality and values as a society.
So we shall sit on the bike properly.
But
yes, we should sit on the bike properly.
The Constitution itself has outlined the national values in terms of how everybody should be able to carry themselves and who is supposed to take which office and how you're supposed to behave. All that is outlined in the Constitution. National values are there.
Okay.
Now, why do you want to now cheapen and start? It doesn't make sense.
Okay, there's another one though on intermarriages, and perhaps that would lead to less cattle rustling in, I think, in Baringo County.
But you need to legislate in terms of intermarriages. Will you force people to intermarry? You cannot do that. If someone wants to marry from wherever they want to marry,
really,
they're going to marry.
Is this going to be the scorecard for county development?
You can't. The counties must get focused.
Okay.
In terms of devolution, there is a clear mandate in terms of what the counties deal with the core mandate and give people enough resources, enough wealth. All these other things will fade away. If people are wealthy, even the borders will not be there.
Okay.
They'll be able to.
And so we won't be worrying about how people are sitting.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm on my way to Baringo. From here, I'm going to Baringo. I'll be there for about a week.
You might want to find...
I doubt that one of the biggest problems is why isn't Wambua marrying Okwara?
Well, while there, you might want to look for someone from an opposite community.
God I'm not heading to Kisumu because really, we can't have that as a scorecard for counties. Sitting on bikes properly, who's
but here's another thing that I think is important, and perhaps that hopefully will not spread to the other counties if that is passed within Kakamega County, and I think that's important and worth discussing, and it is there on page 5, where we're talking about the fact that they want to debate, issues in the county assembly, ostensibly their parliament. They want to have those discussions in their mother tongue. Louis?
Well, I know the question of that. It went back to the competencies of the people that they actually sent to this assembly, which went back to the question of, do you understand what this assembly is supposed to do? Again, the whole question of the civic education that went out, and we have a voter education in this country. We don't have a success story in civic education. We haven't been able to expose to Kenyans a lot of those issues. What happens is, leading up to a vote, we start doing voter education. So this is part of the education that's supposed to tell Kenyans why they need this assembly. This is what they asked for in the new constitution and what they expected to have in this assembly. But now when the discussion comes in, let us start speaking in our mother tongue. You cannot lose sight of why you put that assembly there in the first place, because that assembly is not, it's not a tribal assembly. What happens to the people in that county who are true to the Kenyan, the Kenyan accord where we said, as a Kenyan, you can live and work anywhere.
Anywhere.
What happens to those people? If you're going to shut them out and go local, what happens to that? If that same constitution that gave you that assembly is the same constitution that allowed Kenyans to go and live, do business anywhere.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. It goes back to the lack of information again. These people don't know why they're sitting in that assembly. They have no clue what they're supposed to do in that assembly. And that's why, again, more time is being wasted in people who are saying we want to go local. What kind of issues will they discuss?
And you would actually expect some of these protests to come from the residents of these counties themselves. Is that not so?
It's supposed to be. Actually, even in Kakamega, I think there's either an MP from there who's from Mukambani.
Yes.
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 So are you telling me if he goes to attend those sessions, he will...
What is he supposed to do now?
Question is, though, for any person who's living in Kakamega County and who speaks Luya, like you said, he would have the opportunity to work anywhere. So what would happen if that Luya from Kakamega County goes to work in Garissa County and finds that the county assembly is being held in Somali? Yes, or, you know. So I think the question is to ask, how would it be for me if... because I honestly, and this is something that worries me about the county government.
Why this was a setup. Why did you have this assembly in the first place? What we lack is an understanding of why the institution was there. When you understand that, you will not even engage in a debate whether to go local or not. It will fizzle out.
And this is what scares me about the county governments, because then they could end up balkanizing the country. If we have the people in Kakamega conducting everything in Luya,
they cannot be allowed
and then
to do that.
Not
and the
even
ones
balkanizing.
in,
we are going to create a very crazy, very terrible society. And the message that we're going to send to even to our children is that if you come from a particular area, you must go back to where you are born. Maybe even some of them are not even born there. There are Luyas who have been born in Nairobi, and at times they would even want to go home, and you're telling them that they must be able to conform. This is not a village assembly we are forming. This is a county assembly. And this madness must be resisted at all levels. And even it must start with the governor of Kakamega and the senator, my very good friend Boni Halwale. This kind of madness must stop, because it's not going to help even the Luya people. It's going to even alienate them from other people, unless that is what they are driving at.
And you know what you said about perhaps Kenyans understanding the brief of many of these institutions that we put into place. I'll tell you what, for example, and your cousins, as you like to refer to them, when we had... Oh, I'm sorry. You know, when their governor was living in a hotel, it is not known whether he's moved out of that hotel yet. It surprised me, and I remember I asked, you know, a relative that lives there, why do we not see protests from the members, the residents of that county themselves? And your cousins are very good at doing that, throwing stones and ngoareli and whatnot and everything that they do. Why did we not see that protest coming from the residents? They're saying, we will not allow our governor to do 1, 2, 3. You know, ironically, we do hear of these things from everywhere else except from the residents themselves of the county. We should be hearing protests from the residents of Kakamega County.
The knowledge, in fact, what we're perpetuating is what made the governments of before strong. The lack of information. So right now, again, people are not having the right information, and that is why they do not understand. And we said it on this particular show. We said, I expect that girl will be run out of that hotel by the locals.
By the locals
not by agitation from
outside the county.
People outside the country, not by agitation by other well-meaning Kenyans who have platforms to use to speak about this. But that shows you a disconnect between the citizen and the leadership. They still don't understand that there's an avenue through which to stop that bus. Because that should have been sorted out at their level.
And it would have been very simple to just have a sit-in at the door of the hotel.
They
We're
don't
not
understand
allowing
what
this
the
guy
assembly is
in.
supposed to do. That's what it is. They don't understand what the
right.
assembly is supposed to do. That would have been sorted out in one blow.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, if it depends on how, maybe the kind of working relationship that they have with their locals. Maybe that is how they've allowed him to do that kind of business. But I think what we need to...
Well, he has a point too.
That's true.
That
could be.
That is their status symbol.
Because, and I'll be
seeing it as a problem. To them,
but for them it's okay, because I will anyway, the conversation I had with this person was that, oh, you know, our governor can afford, we can afford to put up our governor in a hotel. I'm not saying that is the blanket statement that was made by all residents of Kisumu County, but I did hear that sentiment from one person that lives there, and it's very sad.
Well, what they should have done is collectively, in one of their assembly meetings, they should have just called the press and said, we are fine. Stop ranting and raving about how we live,
we can afford it.
Our county is good, we know what we're doing, everybody else
is happy.
Yeah.
So let them, my focus, by the way, is not even where they can choose even to live on top of a tree. So long as we remain true to the mandate of the devolution system,
yes,
in terms of delivering services to the county.
But that needs to be championed by the residents of the county themselves. Do you think we're doing enough in our respective counties to hold our county assemblies to account, to hold our governors to account?
Yvonne, we've just rolled out this process, the devolution process. You can see even governors are already, they're also agitating in terms of the kind of money they're supposed to be given. So you can forgive them for the fact that they're on their crawling stage, and they believe they're being stifled. That's why this referendum business is coming up.
That's fine, but the role of the citizen, Martin, do you think they're taking that role as they should?
You have the governor at the
role of the citizen.
Then you have the county assembly members. If the county assembly members are fine in terms of what is happening, because they're the ones who are legislating in terms of the budget of that county. They're the ones who are paying for that hotel. Because if they're living in the hotel, it means the county assembly has budgeted for that money, and they have allowed him to do that. So if that agitation does not even come from the county assembly members, who are representatives of the local people, then it means they're fine with that. Give them the chance. Let them live for the hotel for this 1 year. They'll come up after an audit and tell us that they have lived for hotel, and these are the services that they've delivered to the residents. If the residents are happy with that, with what has been delivered, fine. If they're not, then they'll have a platform to be able to push this kind of
a different way of thinking, that, you know, it is up to them.
One of the things I strongly believe in is this is not the time for the citizen to go to sleep.
Yes.
You don't have that luxury.
Yeah.
These are formative stages of a new system of government.
Now more than ever.
You cannot sit back and wait to complain and wait to make noise in your little cluster where you speak to your people, in the hotels, in the bars, in the, whatever it is you meet. You cannot afford to do that. That's why you're being told, take up your responsibility as a citizen. Get involved. One of the things about devolution is it was supposed to involve you as a citizen. So stop sitting back there and pointing fingers and saying this isn't working. When you've been given by a constitution which you voted in, it gives you the mandate to go to your local assembly and say, we do not want for this and this to happen. But people have to understand, you cannot sit back on this one. And that is why we have so many new arguments coming around. Why are we having people sitting in hotel rooms discussing a new form of government? Why are you having people sitting in a boardroom discussing how to pay or not pay teachers? It is because they still enjoy the lack of input from the citizen. And as long as they enjoy it, they'll continue doing this. Why do we not have a collective conscience? We do these things because we can get away with them. Until the Kenyan steps up and says, this is enough. Stop the bus, this will not end. The shenanigans of a sitting government won't end. The theatrics of an opposition won't end. Because as far as they're concerned, theirs ended when you put them in office. When you give them the mandate, now it's up to them to do what they want to do. Talk to us in 5 years. Now we need to decide as Kenyans, is that what we said? If then we should let these people play out what they're playing out. What now is mooted in Mombasa and starting to roll out in referendum A and B, that is what happens when the citizenry is removed
from the
leadership.
Okay. We're discussing everything under the sun regarding politics and current affairs. Right. So before we get into the president and his trip and what we hope he'll bring back, it reminds me of, like, when your mom or dad goes out and, the minute they come in and there's shopping and you're like, what's in it for me, Anyway. So we're hoping that just an analogy that came into my mind. So we will be waiting when he comes back and open the goodie bag and see what's for me, what's for me, what's for me. Farmers and everybody else will be asking what's in it for them. But before we get into that, the National Union of Teachers today is in the paper, and you know that the TSC is employing 11,000 new teachers, a good step in the right direction towards reducing that shortfall and deficit we have in the education sector. But NUT wants to sit on the panel and be involved. They say they are important stakeholders who should be part of the process of hiring teachers. Martin, do you agree?
Have they been part of it, hiring in the past?
No.
So maybe, I don't know, it's something that we need to look. First, even I think the Teacher Service Commission does this. And the Teacher Service Commission itself, I don't think it's even properly constituted yet.
Yes, the commissioners
they don't even have a chair. They have
yes.
been denying this lady from taking over from that position. And they've been...
Is there another actor there?
There have been so many actors there.
Theater, this country runs.
We need to put the Teacher Service Commission in proper context in terms of how it's supposed to be operating. So that my take on that place, that institution is in total chaos. I think with the hiring of the recent two commissioners is what has brought some semblance of
But to be fair though, do those commissioners sit in the panels for interviewing teachers? The commissioners?
That's the job of the Teacher Service Commission, to recruit.
That's right.
To hire.
That's fine. But is it the commissioners and the chair of the TSC who personally sit in a panel and interview every teacher that wants to be employed?
No, that's not the process, but they're the ones who drive that process. And it is up to them to know how it is going to go, because they're the ones
but
who
isn't it institutionalized and not necessarily based on an individual?
Not individuals per se, in terms of how they're going to, the process to be moved forward. There has to be a structure that is going to show it. They're the employers of teachers. Teacher Service Commission, they're the ones who employ teachers. So definitely they will have a say in terms of how it goes.
Nonetheless, do we want a union official sitting in that board that employs them?
NUT is taking advantage of the fact that there is a vacuum in terms of how the TSC itself is constituted. So until unless the TSC itself is properly constituted, then those vacuums and those gaps will continue to exist. So I would want to believe if we had a properly constituted TSC, then even NUT, I don't think they would want to.
So all things being equal, if it was properly constituted, if we have all the commissioners, isn't it a conflict to have members of a union inside that panel that employs teachers, or is it all right?
A conflict that will repair or spoil what? That's what we're trying to say. First of all, as an institution, we're now clear what TSC is supposed to look like, and when it's done, what they're supposed to do. Once we establish that, that's when we can close the door on intrusions which will say these will not be fair or will not achieve our mandate. But right now, while they're still all up in the air trying to find out who they are and what they're supposed to do, every opportunist will want to be there and be part of that confusion. So right now we can't even criticize them and say you're not supposed to be there, because they will tell us they're supposed to what? What is working anyway?
Okay, let's move to the president's trip. And he was in Russia with the team and cheered them on, and I think there's a great shot of that on page 3 of the Star this morning. So, you know, some good things, and they're cheering the team on, and he's now off to China. Like we said, when we say he's coming back home, the father of the nation, what do we hope he'll bring back in his goodie bag? I do hope the biggest thing will be poaching, and that he will speak to the Chinese president.
Do I need to bring back more poachers?
To bring more poachers or what?
Yvonne.
I do hope the discussion on the table will be poaching, and that he will... You wait for me to finish the statement.
You said.
No, you said
no.
So, hey, now you want to bring back more poachers.
Okay, that he will actually speak to the Chinese president, and that they can have some stricter and tighter laws regarding, you know, poaching, of which they are the greatest beneficiaries, and we, of course, lose the most.
I would be excited if he's going to sit down with China and tell them how to behave in our country. Because when you jump on trade and think that is the most exciting thing, I listened to Nyongesa on Maisha Radio, and ideally that's what everybody should be doing. Simply roll out, and Martin can do this in tomorrow's paper. Just look at the trade balances between Kenya and other trading partners, and look at how the stakes are holding. And then you understand, going to China is going sideways, because the celebration we have is wrong. It's not as if that is a country that is feeding us. And some of these contracts being away to them, it's not because nobody else can do them. So that alone is a point of argument. But right now my concern is, a few days ago I was outside Nairobi Hospital. Some guy in a van is hooting loudly. I walk over to him, and he's a Chinaman. And I asked him, you're outside a hospital, why are you hooting? He speaks to me in Chinese. Clueless, doesn't know what he's doing. So you've got a guy, can't speak a word of English, he's driving on our roads, supplying food to the next door Chinese restaurant.
Ah, yes, I know the place, yeah.
What level of impunity are we encouraging in this country? So now we've got guys, because they've been given this idea that you are building the country. So now just land there in droves, do, be, and behave how you like, do what it is. As a citizen, it makes me feel bad. Because is that the kind of trade imbalance that we want, and is that the kind of relationship we want with a foreign country? We do a lot of trade with Ugandans. In fact, that's our number one trade block. Do you see Ugandans misbehaving like that, at that level, where even if they have an accident, they don't care what happens, or if they're sitting in a place, they're speaking.
Yeah. Okay.
It doesn't happen. But for some reason, the brief these Chinamen are given is, when you come in here, because we are giving you contracts, behave as you like. As a citizen, that annoys me. In fact, I'm wondering, so you went to China to bring what? When we understand that you could have gotten this somewhere else. When we understand that they're not getting it for free. When we understand that now, instead of celebrating China, we are looking at poaching and saying, they even had this whole poaching incident. They've been so brazen. They actually did it right under the nose of the government. As if to show Kenyans, if you ever doubted there's complicity, right here in Nairobi, we will go and fetch what we want and send it out. So I don't know what goodie bags you're waiting for from China.
Take a look at page 4 and 5, and I hope I'd like us to get a shot of that even as we discuss it. The Daily Nation has an analysis today of, looking east and the president's there. And the headline, how Chinese companies will reap from Uhuru's first visit. The trade imbalance that you're talking about? It's now how they will benefit from his trip there, as opposed to, what benefits there are for Kenyans. Could we also be guilty of misreporting this whole trip? I mean, there are some good things that will come out.
Do you remember our reaction to the tragedy at the airport? And with people calling in to say, well, we told you the Chinamen don't need to call and get, is it 2 weeks from there?
A week.
A week. It's sorted, just like we said. Why would they call? This is business coming to them.
Okay, all right. I do want to, if my director can get a shot of that, Daily Nation pages 4 and 5, which I think will help shape the discussion that we're having now. We'll get a shot of that in just a moment. Martin, what are your thoughts on this? Let's be objective today. There are some goodies that will come our way.
Too little,
infrastructure.
Too little to celebrate.
But there are some goodies, yes?
Which ones?
You don't see any?
I'm not happy about China,
Yvonne, let's say it the way it is. It is like this. We are running to the east because the west has been closed. I have friends in the civil service. Let me put these things blank to you. Sometimes you don't like hearing them, but I'm telling you.
It is the way it is.
The taps from the west have dried up. And the only way to go to the east is to go to the east, I mean. And you want our president to make poaching a subject on Xi Jinping's table and tell, are we at the mercy of Chinese? Are you saying that we can't govern our country, that we have to go and plead with their president to stop them from poaching? Is that what you're saying? Because that's a statement you're saying.
That's the level of impunity we're talking about.
Uhuru Kenyatta should go and talk about poaching. It means we are incapable of protecting our homes.
No, yes, fine. That we also do have a responsibility to take care of our wildlife. But then the fact that there's an increased demand for that is that's why they come here for the supply. So let's be honest. Yes, we do need to have that bilateral discussion where we say, okay, as Kenya, we also need to tighten up our borders and tighten up our systems. But as China, you need to curb this demand. That's not a discussion we need to be having with them?
They will not cap that demand because of their historical and cultural whatever. They will not do it. And that should not even be a subject of discussion between Kenyatta.
Poaching aside, there's going to be investments in infrastructure, energy and technology. Is this not a good thing, however small? Yes or no?
It is a bad thing because it is not fair. The balance is wrong.
Has it ever been fair between us in the West and us in the East?
Then let's make it ever that fair? Instead of celebrating a false...
Okay, celebrating or not.
There's nothing celebrating.
I would like us to acknowledge
that.
Will there be good things that come out of this, small or not, imbalanced or not? Will that happen? Because in as much as we're saying it is imbalanced, guess what? It is imbalanced with the West as well. We are a third world nation, and that is a reality.
That's all very well, but with them we're not fighting about poaching, we're not fighting about impunity in this country.
That's fine, but we're fighting about unfair contracts, aren't we?
Short of roasting maize on the streets, what are these Chinese people doing in this country?
They're all over the place. Okay. What else are you talking about?
I've yet to see an Otieno roasting maize for me in the streets.
If you were, advising President Uhuru Kenyatta right now, what would you be telling him to tell President Xi Jinping?
This is the time
to tell all the Chinese to leave the country?
You know, I'm Luo. This is when I say there's a relative who's died, so I'm going on leave. When you come back from China, tell me about it. Because I don't want to be part of this thing.
Okay. I think we're being a bit unfair this morning.
On who?
On the Kenyan people and on our strategy.
The Kenyan people are being misled into thinking that is our lifeline. China is not our lifeline.
Yes, indeed, you're right. He has very little choices on where to go. Agreed.
And he can be on Jinping's knees to get everything that he wants because he can't get it elsewhere.
That is okay, and that is the balance of relationships that we have generally in every and any society, even in your family. There's certain people you lean on, and you know, if I call brother X and he'll be on my side, if I call sister Y, she's just not interested. My point is not whether, let's look at this.
From which angle?
Listen, let's look at this from this angle that, will there be good things that come out of China?
No.
None whatsoever?
No.
Are you categorical on that? You can take that to the bank.
Just that we are there because we don't have a choice.
Regardless of the reason why.
Yes, we will get whatever China will give us. Not that because we that's what we want.
It doesn't matter.
It is because we don't have a choice.
Doesn't matter. We didn't have a choice before, did we?
We've
been facing West for a very long time, haven't we?
But even then, we have all the choices. It's good you can balance them out so that even if you have stuff from the West and you have stuff from the East, you can do that. But all the same, do we need to lean on other people so that we can get what we want?
Actually, yes, we do.
Yes, the trading will be there. My problem is, yes, we shall trade. Yes, there's a trading balance all round.
Yes.
My problem is, the fact that I'm trading with you means now you just run loose in my country like that.
That is a fair point. And on that we agree. On that we agree.
So
and hopefully, maybe a good thing out of that would be for him to do exactly what you said.
Yeah, but you make the rules for your country in your country. You don't go to make rules for your country outside and tell a guy, please don't misbehave in my country. After all, I'm giving you so much business.
When should he visit international countries and when
anywhere he wants to visit. It's not my problem. I'd never tell him don't go.
Understand the brief of when he has an international trip.
He must and he can, should and must visit anywhere. We're an open country.
But
I'm just saying, I need to be careful what I'm celebrating, where he's going.
Okay.
And I'm saying China, I'm not putting out a glass of wine for China. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Here we go with some of your feedback regarding that issue. Wanza, thank you for tweeting. You say UK, the president should issue a tough warning that we do not want the kind of shoddy work we're now seeing on Thika Road. They must improve drainage. To be fair, the drainage now, the road was commissioned by President Mwai Kibaki and it was handed back to the Kenyan people. Yes? We have now been responsible for maintaining this since that time. Yes. So the drainage issue, is it an issue with how it was built or rather how we're maintaining it? Because there's even mud on the footbridges up there.
Because when we took it over, we must have given it a clean bill of health.
Yes.
So whom do we put the whatever?
On the person that's maintaining it now.
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's also just be clear with some of those issues. Yes, that we are now in charge of its maintenance.
You can see
and a road is
even
only
after
as good as it's maintained.
I think after it was commissioned, you saw that there was vandalism in terms of all the stuff. There was a story that was done on KTN. The rails are being removed. How do we blame the Chinaman for that? So
the reason that the drainage is blocked is we are throwing our rubbish on the road.
Yes. Okay.
and in the drain.
So at least on that we are clear.
That was not
That is not the
debatable. No,
that is not the
debate on
China
that.
Road.
We are not in
We didn't even argue about that. We didn't even talk about China Road.
We are not in
We're not interested in China Road.
Oh, yes, and so that I think that also just needs to be clear that sometimes, you know, when some of those things come up, everybody said, oh, look at the roads that they built. But to be fair, they built the road, commissioned, we commissioned it, they gave it to us. The person we should be asking about the Thika Superhighway is the governor of Nairobi City.
Not per se.
Nairobi County.
That's a highway. It's a super highway, and it is classified into a different. That's a national government business.
Right.
Either Kenyan National Highways Authority or the engineer Kamau, who is in charge of
whichever way, we
transport.
should have the county governor of Nairobi and the county governor of Kiambu. Yes, it is a local issue. We should have them raising, even though they're not responsible for it, but did we hear the governor of Nairobi say, hey, Kenya National Highways Authority, what's happening with this road? My residents are being inconvenienced by the fact that you are unable to maintain this road.
Now that's where they're failing. That's what they ought to have done. But although they are not directly responsible for its maintenance, but they should prick their mind and their consciences that their residents or the people who they govern are not happy and pleased with what is happening.
Okay.
That is for sure.
Okay. Yes. Okay, here we go. Now, finally, housekeeping. Actually, I'm informed that this should actually have been the first thing that we discussed, and that we are also political as a country. We must say kudos to our athletics team.
Absolutely. That is something that kept me going, I can tell you, for free. I enjoyed watching how Unisum did it. I enjoyed watching Kiprop. I enjoyed watching also Kemboy the other time. They gave me so much joy, and at least I forgot for a while about all these shenanigans of referendum and stuff like that. They did us proud. They did us very well. Things went on very, despite the fact that there was an athlete who left. I can't remember her name, when she was left at the hotel, which was a very terrible thing for AK. I mean, they must also be take some blame and flack in terms of what happened there. It shouldn't have. Why do we have a team manager and what do you call them, Shefodi Michaud or something like that?
Try saying it in cow.
I mean, the person who's in charge of the team. So you can't, how do you leave an athlete in a hotel and all of you take off? That doesn't make sense. So, and we'll also need to take a couple of audit in terms of what happened there. But all the same, I think the Kenya team of athletics did us proud. But how do we celebrate them? We also need to show some good whatever in terms of when they show up, so that we can encourage more athletes to be able to take that venture. So it was a good thing.
They have needs. They have certain needs, and these needs are only highlighted, unfortunately, today when they won gold. A week from the celebration, we don't talk about their needs. We don't put them up like this and say, what needs to be done to make us better? What needs to be done to make this country actually beat Ethiopia in those areas where now it seems as if it's Kenya versus Ethiopia, and Ethiopia is still holding on to certain things. Especially now that our gold winners, we don't have acting gold medalists. They're actually win.
They're not acting holders of the medal.
They're not acting holders. They actually win their gold and bring back home, and we're proud of them. But I'm just saying, take that to the next level. Look at it administratively and see, how do I make this happen? Because we cannot be the country that lives for now. So we celebrate the one who's won now. We don't even know how they got there and how to keep them there. So tomorrow again, we live by chance. We wait and say, is Yvonne going to win 10,000 meters? We celebrate Yvonne. When it's done, we don't know what happens. But how do we protect and how do we create the next Yvonne? Those are things which haven't found the level of discussion they should in a sitting government.
Okay, all right. And Unisum, who seemed to have been overlooked, how did we get to that point where we thought,
ineptitude,
you know, she wouldn't win, and then, you know, she surprised us, and that was that at the end.
That's the indictment.
And you know why? Because Janet Jepkoskei is the one that reigns supreme, and we said, because Janet is not there, then
so we won't get it.
Which
is a fallacy, I think, in terms of how they manage the athletes. That's why I'm saying there's some indictment on the part of Athletics Kenya. There's in terms of just overlooking other new athletes who have been doing the rounds. You we tend to just focus on the same people that we think are the ones who can do it. But here we are stifling some very good prospects. So I think there's need to overhaul this kind of management and administration in the AK, so that we can also celebrate new entrants into the athletics world. I think Eunice has proved it, that although nobody thought about her, she has come out and made it. So it shows there are many more talented ones. Maybe we are not just focusing on them.
Even the media is indicted there, because they didn't go beyond. In fact, they're the people who created this sense of hopelessness to the country, because they said the Alert Express isn't there. Now, really, let's not pay attention to that. This girl, she believed in herself. Did anybody talk about it? Did anybody talk about how we're encouraging her? No. And that is why we are surprised. And this girl did her best. She did what she went out there to do. Did anybody say anything to encourage her? We concentrated on the person who was not there. And we have a tendency to do that in the media. We'll flourish and make noise about the people who are now showing. So we have no sense of who came before, how do we sustain this, who goes after.
Who goes after.
I always say one of the things we did, do you remember the kind of flowery language the media used to describe Congestina? I mean, rumble in the jungle, crazy adjectives. When the media left that poor woman alone, she ended up in a mental home. So we also have to be careful how we celebrate Kenyan winners, how we put them out there, and how we actually celebrate the entire team. We cannot be, as Kenyans, having an outsider winning within Kenya. This girl is not an outsider. She's part of us. She's in our team. Why is a Kenyan surprising us in our own stable?
You can see even on 10,000 meters, Vivian Cheriot is out because she's out on maternity leave. And we didn't want to even prop up whoever else has been on that stable. So why, you know, we tend to believe that, and we have to wait for her to finish her holiday, come back so that we can be able. Yet there could be many more who are in there.
And when you talk about investment in sport, even in we do great in athletics, but then again, it took Diego, who trains himself on YouTube, to show us that, by the way, it's not only athletics that we can do well in. You know, we can do well in the javelin throw and indeed very many other sectors of our sport. We only start to pay attention when they're winning. When we've got the rugby team that's, you know, got the 99 points in the World Cup, and you know, and when we have Victor Wanyama now in the English Premier League. But do you think that, you know, we also need to focus on, there's so many other sports.
There's something that, like we were saying another time, if we focus on Louis' cousins, they're good at throwing stones. Maybe they're both
shot put? Yes. Isn't it?
Stuff, you know, it's
possible. Use some of those stereotypes for good. Yes.
Exactly.
You know, there's... Educate me though. We have the shot put. We have the one where they, you know, sort of lodge it here and then, you know, turn around. And then there's the one with the discus. There you go.
It will be a piece of cake for your cousins.
I don't know why they've not been given uniforms, because instead of uprooting chairs from Kasarani, that was pathetic.
Okay, all right, fine. Let's now take a look at the next 7 days and what we hope to see shaping our discourse here when we meet again. Louis, why do you have that blank look on your face? Do you not see anything that's happening in the next 7 days?
I was going to say something really bad about the president being in China.
No, we're off of that now, by the way. And even as you talk about, you know, certain Chinese individuals misbehaving, I do know of certain Europeans with those red plates really misbehaving on the roads. So, you know, let's be fair.
On who?
On everyone.
Okay, let me just...
But let's move away from that China, because we've raised a lot of what some would term xenophobic
I'm
statements.
Just saying, let's just, okay. Is there a way we can stop this theater of actors proceeding in this country? I don't know how that pan out this week, but we need to get to a sense where we take responsibility for some of the actions that go on in the public forum. And maybe now, maybe an education on some of the things that the government of the day is supposed to do. Let's hear more suitable and tangible answers instead of getting into a political boxing match with Raila, because he will win. That's what he's primed to do. So if you want to shout back at him, you're wasting time. So let's see a brag sheet that talks about results based on what you promised to roll out. But he will always do that. He will always be covert. He will always be a schemer. So if you want to see if he's going to cow down because you're shouting, then you're in the wrong business. He will win at the end of the day. So you need to have a brag sheet that is factual, and that's the only way you'll beat him.
Okay. So going forward, perhaps that's what the Jubilee government should do: sit down and take a look at the good story and say, this is what we're doing right.
Get a brag sheet and stop feeding into the opposition. All this bungling has to end.
Okay. Martin?
Even as we look at these issues as they unfold, if you just rewind, you'll see even yesterday both Rutos were sharing the same platform, and they spoke differently. So while the deputy president was dismissing this thing, Isaac Ruto stuck to his gun and said that for sure devolution must be. He was championing for the devolution cost. So maybe this is not something that is going to go away. The issue they say they're going to, Isaac Ruto says they're going to stay on course in terms of the referendum for the issue of the governors and the Senate to get powers for devolution. Whereas some of the Jubilee senators have pulled out, but I think with Raila backing off, maybe the thing will stay on course. But then
again, whether he's backed off or not is another issue.
Is another issue, but what I read from Isaac Ruto is that they are staying on course. They don't care because they want to protect this stuff. So this is something that is still going to make debate in this whole week. As you can recall, Parliament is currently on recess, though they're investigating a few other things that have been going on. So I hope maybe when Parliament resumes in the next 2 weeks, maybe the reports that I've gathered maybe will shed some light in terms of how the process is supposed to go forward. And the issue of Kenya Airports Authority is also something that is, I believe, since we are still renovating.
And there's more changes expected there, as opposed to just removing, the MD and putting in place someone acting. There's certain structures and systems.
It needs a total overhaul of that place, because we are looking. This is our major investment in terms of how we are being viewed internationally. So we can't afford to jumble up with it. It's something that we need to take good control of it and put proper mechanisms in place, as opposed to just shuffling musical chairs.
Like Martin is saying, keep Isaac Ruto very close, because he's stepped up, which means he can be interrogated, he can be audited, because he's got his mandate as a governor.
Which Ruto are we talking about?
Isaac, I said keep Isaac Ruto very close. He's got his mandate, and he's also the chair of the governors. So he cannot be seen to speak differently when the governors are collectively saying we're not empowered. He's got to be true to his position. But what I like about that is, as if somebody is stepping up, you can question him, you can challenge him. I don't think he's afraid to answer questions. Now, if somebody is stepping up to say, I'm championing devolution, void of this other shenanigans, that's the guy to keep close. That's the person to take the argument to, so that we can actually track the whole argument of devolution, where it's going. Others will get caught up in that other shady arrangement where people now want to sneak in some other issues. Then we get caught up in another political debate that will not end, because then we're always fighting for political positioning. But if somebody has stepped up, you find Isaac Ruto, you find Anwe Guru, you find whoever that transition authority or Mwangi chap is, you find the revenue allocation guys, you find CIC. Those are the guys to keep close and track them. That's the only way to help Kenyans understand who is getting us off track, because they have positions of policy and authority as given to them by Kenyans, as given to them in the constitution. Those are the people we need to challenge, because what they say is factual. As for politics, we need to be wiser than that now. So those guys who are fighting their politics, let them enjoy themselves. But the people we need to keep track on. That's our duty.
And you can understand the governors are the drivers of the process in terms of county, the push in the counties. So if they are feeling the pinch, they should not keep quiet, because it means when we come to audit them, we'll tell them, why didn't you raise
and they will say,
stand up to be counted? Yeah,
they will say, you didn't give me enough money, you didn't give me enough powers.
Absolutely, and then you can understand why also members of parliament are getting jittery when governors talk, they give that kind of talk, because their thought is that if governors are truly empowered and they live true to their mandate, then it's like they're going to make them irrelevant in terms of even when it comes to pushing this devolution process. That is something I understand fully. So it's something I would not
So devolution, and of course, like you mentioned, keeping track of the people, to whom we can hold to account.
Get those people sitting in a panel that every month or so,
we can
put them up there and say, all right, this is what is happening.
For the last 30 days.
It's the only way we'll sort out this nonsense of politics and who's trying to do what, who goes out there, floats a crazy idea, the next day steps back and says the temperature is not right. You must set, like I said, for Raila Odinga, every waking moment he'll want to be president. And that's his role. You cannot fault him. How do you get upset with him for that? That's what he's trying to do. You can't get upset because he's trying to be president. The way to deal with him is to make sure that Kenyans see they don't need him based on your results. Not based on the fact that you can shout louder than him. But those guys, if we have a consistent platform where we put them up there, that is the greatest thing we can do for Kenyans. So that everything they raise, the questions they have, those guys are put out there. You talk to Isaac, you talk to Anne, you talk to Chai, you talk to this, then we know, is it working from all angles? The budget angle, the constitution angle, the political angle. We shall stay with issues.
Indeed, focusing on the issues. Thank you both, gentlemen, for that. It's been a great session as always. And your feedback, do I have time? Maybe 2 or 3. Paddy, you say, your guests forget United Kingdom was around Kenya for 100 years and never offered to build a thicker road, even with their expensive loans. And then we have another one here that says, from Wanda Namale, you say China is not and will never be Kenya's lifeline. The president must not ask the Chinese president for anything anti-poaching. Why not? Okay, I know. I mean, why not? Okay. Nimaoni, but thank you for that. Wanza, you say, I think China hang their poachers. Maybe that's something we should consider, borrowing from them. Okay. Brian K, you say, I agree with your panel. The celebration about China is premature. It feels reactionary. Danson Matea, no good things will come from China. We have our own Chinese at Juakali. Fair point. Kevin Obora, you say, Chinese are introducing substandard goods in the country, in fact, in our economy. And so obviously, this trip to China is a big one. Here's one that, would end the show on a lighter note. Ashiko, you say, your dress code today reminds me of Alfulela Ulela. You guys converged at night via the genies and decided on the attire. Really.
None of it is Chinese, we must have.
Oh, come on.
There's nothing Chinese here, not all clothes, nothing like that. In fact, those cabs guys should be there to meet the president's plane when he comes back, if they really do any work. Let them meet the president with their cabs standard.
Okay,
let's see what gets stamped from there.
There you go. That's our show for today. Thank you for joining us and thank you for watching. Thank you for your comments and your feedback. We do appreciate each and every SMS, each and every tweet and Facebook post as well. Have a very great day. We will see you again tomorrow. Be blessed. Bye-bye.